A computer guitarist versus a real guitarist. I don't even know how I'm gonna do this comparison thingy, but let's try it. Here we go. Hey, what's up guys? Mendel here. Hope you are all doing wonderful and awesome, truly. So as a guitar player, I was really curious about one thing, because in my music I program a lot of bass, and I was curious, like, how good are those guitar sims, or like guitar simulators, or like where you can program guitars to replace your guitars basically, or if you're not a guitar player, to like program guitars for a metal song or for any song in particular. So I contacted Impact SoundWorks, and they were kind enough to give me a license to make this video. Links and everything is in the description box below. But basically they gave me a license for Jupiter 3, which is like the John Petrucci Music Man guitar, I believe. And that's the one we're going to use for this video. If you like this video, there are basically two things you could do. Of course, hit subscribe and give me a thumbs up. That's much appreciated. But besides that, the song I'm using for this video is Descending Upon Hades from my solo album Universal Omega. And last year I released a tabbook for that album. And those tabs, which are in Guitar Pro and PDF, I used the Guitar Pro file to export MIDI, and that's the MIDI I used for programming the guitars with Jupiter 3. So besides give me a thumbs up, if you want, if you like the music, there's a link in the description box below where you can buy the tabbook and learn all my solo songs for yourself, and all the sweeps and all the licks. It's even for me it's still pretty challenging, but I really hope you enjoy the music, and like I said, if you do, the link's in the description box below to buy my tabbook. Thanks for that. Now let's go into a comparison. Here we go. So here we are in Cubase. Here we are in the Cubase project of my song Descending Upon Hades. Links in the description if you like the song. So blue are the real guitars played by me, and orange is Jupiter 3 or Shreddag3 Jupiter. So first we're gonna listen to the real guitars, and then we're gonna listen to the amp sim and do some back and forth comparison and that kind of stuff. But first, the real guitars. Here we go. Alright, sounds pretty good. Did I fool you? Because those were not the real guitars. Those were actually the amp sims. I used some video trickery, like in post-editing, I switched up the vision so it looked like the real guitars were playing, but it was actually the sound of the amp sims. So did that convince you? I'm very curious. Let me know in the comments. Did you actually think like, I'm not sure if those are real guitars? He said real guitars, right? Those were actually the fake guitars. So let's do that one more time. So I'm muting the real guitars, and this is Jupiter 3, so Shreddag. Now I stopped before that bend because the vibrato it was so hard to program that I couldn't get it real sounding. But let's solo it. So this is just Jupiter 3. Shredded, I keep saying it wrong, but here we go. So when you listen in solo, I can personally hear it's an amp, or it's a guitar sim. Amp sim, it's a guitar sim. When I compare that to my playing, which isn't as perfect, but I think that's the thing, like the human feel of it. And it could be me that I don't know every single parameter very well, but when I went to the vibrato amount and when I dialed it in, it didn't sound like a real guitar vibrato. Here's what I think. Or this is what I mean. It almost sounds like two strings at the same time are going to one pickup. But for the rest, to be honest, like when I listen to the mix, so again, also the rhythm guitars are the sims, but when I listen like this, so mute all the real guitars, that tap, like I could not, like I'm not sure if I could hear the difference, to be honest, versus a real amp. when I switched it to my guitar, I don't know, I think an untrained ear would probably not be able to tell the difference. So let's go to the rhythm guitars. So this part is single noted, so it's pretty easy and convincing. I do hear some tiny, some tiny differences. But if you're curious about the amp sim, by the way, it's the Gojira plugin, for those who want to know. But playing wise, I can hear some round robins, like it's the same exact take. But I think that could even be fixed with some, like if we would do this perhaps, this a tiny bit, those tiny variations. And let's do the same on the other side. That kind of stuff. Let's take a listen. Not really there, but I think with some, if you put some time into this, you would be able to make it more convincing. And comparing that to my guitars, so when we compare that intro rhythm palm mute thingy, all right, and compare that with the real guitars, you can hear that sag, like my picking, digging in the strings. That's the more human thing in my opinion. But comparing it with the other one, with the fake guitar, and keep in mind it's a totally different guitar. But still, in the mix, that's a real solo. But when I switch that around for my guitar, the rhythm, I mean, I think with the palm mute single note thing, the difference is bigger because they're different guitars rather than the amp sim not being like a real guitar. For that part though. Now I have to confess one cool thing that really surprised me. So while I was editing like the MIDI things, like MIDI thingies, like I said, I exported the guitar MIDIs from the guitar profiles of my Tabbook and adjusted them to make them a bit more human. But seriously, this happened. So I was editing, let me just find which part it was. I think it was this part. Yeah, that part. And I'll show you in a bit. But I was editing that part. And I was like this, like here in the MIDI, like checking the velocities and that kind of stuff. And while I was editing, I thought that the guitar sim was a mute and I was listening to the real guitars. I kid you not. So then I checked and then I realized, yeah, well, now here they're muted, but then I realized that actually the guitar sim was playing and the real guitars were muted. So I fooled myself, to be honest. And that was this part. So this part to me sounded like a real guitar, even soloed while I was editing. Because the real guitars sound like this, and they're pre-edited. Compare that with the other. And especially because you hear that thing that's not really fully tight, even though the MIDI is tight, but it sounds human. I mean, if I would listen to that in the mix.
Start this neoclassical bull. Okay, let's start this neoclassical bullshit.
If I was focusing on that lead, I would not be able to tell it was fake guitars on that part, I think. Those are the real ones. Really impressed, really stunning. To be honest, I'm quite impressed. I didn't think it would be like this good. But one thing that I think is still kind of lacking is this quick neoclassical part. Because I play that part pretty decent, I think. I prefer that sound, that more human feel. That thingy. Let's just grab my guitar. Those little nuances I'm talking about, like for example, when I play this part, and when I do this, like my palm, that thingy moves across the strings, which gives it like not a perfect feel, but it makes it. I keep repeating myself, but it makes it more human. I'm not even sure I can play this thing. I'm not warmed up. That kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of thing. Those human nuances and how my pick is like angled and going across the strings. I think those are the things that make, like, I would think it's impossible to sample that. It could perhaps be possible, but it would take a long time, I think. I've never sampled a guitar. But those little nuances are what separates, in my opinion, the computer from human. Now, technically, the computer can play the lick technically better than me. Like, it's perfect, it's spot on, like note-wise. Those kind of things. And I can't play perfectly that. Perhaps there are some guitar players out there who can, but do I want to play it that perfect? I'm not sure. I like my tiny mistakes. Perhaps the timing's not perfect. For example, never getting to this whole songwriter emotional thing, but when I record a lick, and for an example, when that quick lick goes into a high note, and for an example, I didn't play the quick lick like perfectly spot on, but when I do that high note, like that bend, and it starts to sing, like when the feedback kicks in, or perhaps I just like picked it in a certain way that it gets some harmonics and that kind of stuff, I would keep that take. I would rather have that than playing that lick perfectly, but the bend doesn't have that special moment in it. So that's a more of a taste thing. Let me put my guitar away. Now, to be honest, I bet there are people who could program like the Jupiter guitar, like really beyond detailed, and make it perhaps sound like me or sound like a real guitar player. So the end verdict, who wins, the real guitar player or the fake Shreddag3 Jupiter guitar player? And in my opinion, it depends. I, of course, am a guitar player. I prefer my own sound, my own amps. And the most important thing, my feel, like my attack. There's a saying, and it's fully true. You could take, let's say, 3 different guitar players. Let's say Guthrie Govan, John Petrucci, and Yngwie Malmsteen. Just naming 3. If I would make an amp setup, let's say a Mesa Lone Star with the overdrive pedal in front of it, and each guitar player would play through that exact same setup, I can guarantee it would sound completely different, because every guitar player has his own timing, his own feel, how he picks. There are so many nuances. It would even sound different if they had the same amp rig and the same guitar. It would still sound completely different. And that's the beauty of a human player. So for a songwriting tool, let's say if you're a drummer or a bass player who does have a guitar or can play guitar and want to program ideas, I think this is awesome. I think this is really awesome. It sounds, like I said, I fooled myself. I fooled myself during that whole riff part, like this thingy right here. That part versus so yeah, I think it's a great writing tool. But could it replace a real guitar player? No. In my opinion, no. It depends on what you want, but overall, my personal taste is, or my personal opinion is, that a real guitar player wins over the computer guitar player. I do have to say, because when I started practicing, I would program my ideas in Guitar Pro and then play along and get faster and faster. And you could do that with this too. That would be a great like learning tool. Like use this to program an idea, like a lick, and try to match it. Like timing wise, it could be a great practice tool, I think. But could it replace a real guitar player? No. All right, so there you have it. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, that really helps me out. And if you like the music, I've put my solo album music in the links below. And make sure you check it out, Shreddag3 from Jupiter from Impact SoundWorks. My name is Mendel, stay safe, and see you next time. Cheers.